Good morning, Facebook. How you doing? This is A.L. Johnson. I'm here with a couple of my brothers, Mr. Andrew Boykin as well as Lauren Jones, and we're here to have a conversation, a very, very important conversation. We're here in February, which is Black History Month, and over the course of the last few weeks on our Elevating Men podcast, we've talked a lot about solutions for the future, ways that we can start making change today for a better tomorrow. And so when it comes down to that, we all have our piece of the puzzle, that we're trying to fill in. Me specifically, it's about family and fatherhood. I'm really passionate about that. Mr. Boykin has actually come up with a plan that I believe can really help our communities. And so I wanted to give him a platform and an audience to, just really put his thoughts out there. He's been working hard on this project and he's been talking about it for a while. It's reston2050.org. That's the website where you can get more information. But today he's going to give us a really good overview and a breakdown of what this all entails and give us an opportunity to ask questions, to ask questions. But the premise of it is this. As Black Americans, we were promised 40 acres and a mule, and that was never received. When it comes to reparations, of course, they just had a hearing here about a week ago. We don't know what's going to happen with that, but there's a very good likelihood that we won't receive those reparations either. And so the question is, do we sit and we wait, or do we take action without that? And so that's what we're going to tackle today. And so, Andrew, reston2050.org, sir, what exactly is that all about?
Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, Andrew. Good morning, Lauren. And thank you for the opportunity to talk more about this. Reston2050.org, the restoration, is actually about building a tomorrow, and that tomorrow actually starts in 2050. We're going to build this tomorrow before it actually gets here. A lot of people talk about you either plan to fail or you fail to plan. And it's been my experience that African Americans, we plan usually for the day. We usually plan for the moment. We even may plan for, let's say, the year. And sometimes we actually get through the next month before we change those plans. And that's just a generalization. There are many people out there that make plans, they stick to their plans, and their life turns out in accordance with their plans. What I'm asking us to do is to consider a long-term plan, meaning the year 2050 is going to get here, whether we are prepared for it or not. Just like the year 2021 got here, when in 1963 I was born. Now imagine if in the 1960s, when Malcolm and Martin and others were talking about what we needed to do, what we could do, how we could do, what it would reveal. Imagine if we would have put real action to that. And when I'm talking about real action, that would have meant understanding our own shortcomings, understanding our own mentalities, and dealing with us so that we could actually become a we, which would be the first word in that sentence, meaning we should do this. If they would have done stuff, if this seed would have been planted 60 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation. However, because that seed was not planted 60 years ago, not only have we been having this conversation in the 80s and in the 2000s, but now it's 2021 and we're still talking about what we need to do, what we should do. And if we don't do anything different, I'll guarantee you that our grandchildren will be having the same conversation. Does that open it up?
So from what I understand, it's really about having a plan for the future. Right now, that really doesn't exist. Unfortunately, we're going, year by year, decade by decade, and we're really just pushed and pulled by the whims of our government as it relates to our people and our advancement, our growth. And so this is the website. What you see now is the website, reston2050.org, the restoration. Andrew, when people go to this site, what exactly should they be looking for?
If you will just scroll down just a little bit. Can you scroll down? Right there. The restoration is a 32-year plan that has actually been cultivating for decades. And what that means is, again, This conversation is not new. These desires, these plans are not new. What is new is that we're actually planting a seed, meaning our purpose, and I'm going to read this, includes creating a different tomorrow by first developing perpetual resources. Those perpetual resources are resources that actually feed themselves and grow themselves, and adding to those long-term sustainable structures, meaning a lot of us put together businesses, we put together things in place, but the structure is usually for the moment. The structure is usually based on all we know, but the structure does not fully include everything that what we've built is going to encounter. And just because it does not include that, what we're also saying is putting together pivotable structures where it says down there, help this venture pivot when needed and continue growing for generations to come. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to build our tomorrow, because we can actually build out April. We can actually have a plan for April, come together and define what we're going to do for April. And when April gets there, we will actually walk into April, into that plan, enacting it, implementing it, doing it. We can also do it for next year. We can also do it for 2025, but we can also do it for 2050. How old are your youngest kids, Andrew?
My two youngest are 8 and 9.
8 and 9. Lauren, how are your youngest?
9 and 6.
9 and 6. There's a strong possibility that not only will your children see 2050, but if your children remain healthy, do you know your children will actually see 2100, the turn of the century? And the thing is there are actually people out there who are planning for 2100, who are actually preparing for 2100. Not us, but there are actually people out there doing that, and their children, I would like to assume, will not panic when there's a rolling blackout. And a rolling blackout is an intentional blackout. We're not even talking about the unintentional blackout where the power just goes out and nobody has it. We're talking about where the power just went out recently because they said, you know what, we're going to turn this power off so that we can save it to make sure everybody has a piece of it. And in doing so, we don't care if your pipes freeze. We don't care if your water pipes burst. We just got to do this because you all didn't prepare differently. This is how we prepared the plan to go so that it will work for us years to come. Not you, but for us years to come. We're just going to turn your power off, though. And a lot of us don't understand what really happened. We don't understand that, okay, now some of these businesses are closed. Where am I going to go get some food from? Because I don't grow my own food. The chicken that I have in the refrigerator is gone. We ate that yesterday. I don't know how to put a live chicken into a pot. There's a whole lot of things that I don't know how to do in order to live or survive, which makes me totally dependent upon somebody else figuring out my survival, especially my tomorrow.
So the big problem that you see in what I'm gathering so far, and for those of you who are just tuning in, we're talking with A.L. Boykin. He's the founder of restin2050.org, which is a plan for restoration of our communities. I'm looking on the website here, and so again, just like those of you who are tuning in, myself and Mr. Lauren Jones are looking at this objectively. We've had a chance to overview, but we're going to be asking some questions. And I really like what I see here. And so here on the About page of restin2050.org, it has a 3-part plan. I'm just going to read through this really quick, and I'd like for you to expound on it and help us understand a little better. But part 1 of the plan centers on creating a globally viable, multi-billion-dollar investment-driven portfolio, which includes purchasing, owning all rights to, and fully developing strategically located land masses. So part 1 is to, again, build a multi-billion-dollar investment portfolio and purchase land. Part two focuses on bringing pieces of our hearts together by connecting, reconnecting, collaborating with, and supporting agencies, organizations, HBCUs, groups, individuals, businesses, friends, and others who are currently planning for and developing tomorrow's generation through areas which include health, emboldening, advocacy, real estate, technology, and security. And then part three of the plan involves passing on the established resources, plans, pivotal structures, and safeguards to a better prepared generation of leaders in the year 2050, hence restin2050.org, who will in turn add to those efforts and then pass the torch on to an even more prepared generation of leaders in 2100 and so on. Andrew, can you expound on the plan? Like, why is it part one, part two, part three? Was there any strategy involved in that? What is the goal when you say building a multi-billion-dollar investment-driven portfolio? How is that accomplished? When we talk about buying land, is there a specific location? What are the thoughts there? What's the goal?
Okay, so everything, as I told at the first page alluded, this plan has been in the process for decades. So everything that I'm using is a blueprint. Someone else has already done this. It's just that we have not. So my blueprint was Harvard University. And in 1974, Harvard University actually had $1 billion in their endowment. And they were no different than many of the other colleges out there. However, the treasurer, who so happened to be the local bank president for Harvard, said, you know what, you ought to figure out a way, or you ought to actually make this grow a different way. I can't do it alone, but here's how you do it. So he actually helped them put a plan together where they started different investments. That that endowment is now worth $41 billion. So over a span of 46, 47 years, that endowment grew tremendously, almost $1 billion a year. Now, what were they able to do with that? Well, just off the interest alone from their endowment, they would take part of the interest and put it back into the endowment so that it will grow. They will take the other portion of that interest and do whatever they wanted to do, such as research, such as pay for the schools, such as buy land. Harvard owns land. They own vineyards in California. They own land in South America. They own land all over the world. And what that does is it actually furthers their research so that they can actually think about tomorrow, implement those thoughts, and then come back prepared to share with us what tomorrow is going to be. Because they're already in tomorrow. We're not. So this goal actually includes us developing our multi-billion-dollar portfolio. And the reason for a multi-billion-dollar portfolio is we think money is so important, but money is just the way that I'm interpreting this, is just the way we communicate. It's a global communication method right now. And money will not always be the way we communicate most. It might not be that way in 2050 or 2100. That's why we will secure our opportunities and our holdings with land, because land will always be valuable. And that land goes down into the earth and it goes up into the atmosphere as well, into the universe. And those are the things that we want to acquire. And it's their strategic land masses. I'm not talking about buying property. I'm not talking about buying houses and apartment buildings and shopping malls. I'm talking about land masses similar to old military facilities. And old military facilities, the way that I define them, they look just like small towns, little cities. And what we do there is we actually bring those little cities back to life, and we actually incorporate them as incubators so that we can actually grow from what we've developed. And part two of this actually says that we then see what we have created on the surface, and that what we have created on the surface, meaning our donations into this non-divestible fund, meaning no checks are written out of this fund, just like Harvard's, out of this non-divestible fund. When we see what we have done over the first 5-10 years, then we actually feel that we are doing something. We begin to come together again we began to reconnect purposefully, intentionally. We began to forgive ourselves and forgive those who have trespassed against us. We began to actually become a we. That in itself emboldens us. That in itself empowers us. That in itself takes some of the stress level out of us and starts to increase our health in many different ways. That in itself increases our advocacy, our voice, our power of our voice. That in itself increases our securities. That in itself opens the opportunity for us to increase our technology. And again, we talked about real estate. So these are the things that we're planning to do. And more importantly, we're learning that it's not about us anymore. We're preparing this for tomorrow. We're giving of ourselves so that they will be better prepared and they will have more of an opportunity to begin to prepare for someone else in 2100. And then that mindset by 2200 says that, hey, I was born in order to make sure that my legacy lives on.
Thank you. Thank you for breaking that down for us. Definitely appreciate that. It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense when it comes down to it. The events of last year of 2020, the coronavirus, the lack of, just the ability to get simple toiletries, to be able to walk in a Walmart, which all of us do at some point, and see bare shelves. It was a scary proposition. We see a lot of the wealthy people in our society, in the United States of America, they're fleeing to different countries. They're buying up land. There's a big push towards sustainable living, doing your own farming, growing your own food, because we do understand at this point, or at least we should, that if we don't take control of the resources, the things that sustain our life, then we're always going to be subject to the powers that be. And if those powers become corrupt, what do we do? What do we do? And so I think it's great that you have developed a plan. Now, here's a good question. I'm looking here on the website. I see that you have a board members. And so it appears that this isn't just an idea that you came up with yesterday and slapped a website together, and now you're talking about raising funds and buying land. There has been some groundwork laid, some sort of foundation. So can you speak to the board of members and what type of experiences they have that could help this situation?
Our board members have various experiences. Bridget, to give an example, she owns her own business. She's a world traveler. More so, Bridget is grounded. Bridget understands the vision. Bridget understands that this is not about us. What Bridget then did was she reached out to her 6-degree separation instantly because she saw a missing piece automatically. And that missing piece actually was a financial advisor who deals with investments and knows the language of investments, the purpose of investments. Not only that, but knows the investors. And that was Edgar. Edgar is very well versed in that field. He's out of Chicago. Bridget is out of Houston. Excuse me. Next, we have Sherry. Sherry is a historian. Sherry is living history. Sherry has lived through many different versions of our story. Sherry shared with us that her grandfather, just out of slavery in the late 1800s, purchased 6 plots of land because he had 6 children. And he knew that he wanted to pass those plots off to his children so that they would have more of an advantage when they were able to take over and develop their own. Unfortunately, those lands were in Arkansas. And at that point in time, Arkansas was not friendly to African Americans. So many African Americans who could not withstand the pain and the pressures moved away. They moved north, as her family did, to Kansas City. The land, of course, stayed in Arkansas. And eventually her parents, her mother, which was one of those 6 children, and her sisters, her siblings, brothers and sisters, they sold those plots for $18,000. Sherry now says that land is worth millions. There is a Benai Jehuda temple on the property. It's gated off for blocks, and it's beautiful. And every time she passes by her family land, all she can do is just shake her head. Edwin is also out of Houston, but he's an actor, so he's a world traveler. Edwin has a passion of restoring the arts, the way that we have told our story, the way that our story has been captured. And that is the gift that he's going to bring to this table. Scroll up. Kenneth is local. Kenneth has a passion for helping people understand their adversity. He actually has a podcast that's entitled Adverse Effects, and it's very, very good. People don't understand that in the midst of their storm, they can actually find not only reasons for that storm, but they can also find strength to help them not only through that storm, but after that storm, which is the effect that adversity brought to a person. And Flavilia is out of St. Louis, and she is a human resources manager. So she knows the intricacies of people development and their whys and their pains in the struggles of development. And then there's that guy at the end who's been thinking about this plan for the past 30 plus years. And it was time to stop thinking about it, and time to stop talking about it. And it was time to start doing.
Thank you for the breakdown on the board members. And so it looks like you got a wonderful group of people here. I think that's a beautiful thing. Brothers and sisters from all over the country joining together for a common goal. A lot of times it's hard to get a couple people in your family to, not argue over where you're going to have dinner and how you're going to split the bill, let alone taking on a project of such mass proportions. And so I definitely want to commend you on putting this group together, to help us make these moves. And so that's really awesome. Now, a question. So I see here it says plant a seed. Get here to this. So for those who support the vision as well, what would be the next steps from them? What are you looking for from the community?
What I'm looking for are persons to find out whether or not they actually see this vision, whether or not they can understand this vision. And if they can see this vision to the point where it's just, wow, 2050 is coming. What are we going to do about it? And they've actually embraced the we. They would actually contact us via email, and the contact us is on there. And they will ask, how can I help? What I would then do is I would almost put that question back onto them based on their understanding of our purpose. And when I say our purpose, I'm talking about as a holistic purpose, meaning what gifts can you bring to this? Meaning each and every one of us actually has a gift and a purpose that we can bring to this. And it's not just money. It's not just money. People think that, okay, I can't donate right now, so there's no way I can help. However, you actually might be connected to the persons that not only provide information for our missing pieces, in which you can connect us to our missing pieces, but eventually you will actually help bridge that gap between us and them, which introduces a whole new set of pieces that are coming into this picture. There are many ways that people can help, but donations, yeah, we would love your donation. We would love a $5 donation, a $10 donation, a $20 donation. We would love for a monthly donation where you would just set $10 away and just say, hey, for $10 a month, I'm going to give it to the restoration. And where I'm going to find that is I'm going to choose to give up, let's say, 2 Starbucks coffees a month. I'll replace that with something different, but 2 Starbucks cups of coffee a month that I'm going to drink away and eventually eliminate. I'm going to put it towards the restoration. And then I'm going to actually challenge my friends to join me in that. And then I'm going to ask them to ask their friends to join me in that. And the more we actually reach out to our 6 degrees of separation, the more we actually become closer. And that word that term 6 degrees of separation, the more we begin to unseparate our separation, the more we begin to come together.
So let me ask you this. Let's fast forward to 2050. People have invested in their future and the future of their children through the restoration plan. What do we see in 2050? Let's fast forward. Can you give us a vision of what 2050 looks like if this project goes
Going
as
to the
planned?
third page where it says 2050 vision.
Okay.
And scroll down so you can watch our story unfold. Now that right there is the actual story. And yeah, click on, yeah, there you go. So in 2050, no, better yet, in 2246, the year 2246, this story will be told. And it reads, today in class, we'll be reading my all-time favorite story. The year was 2018. And that's when our great-great-grandparents, they got together and they actually began planting seeds. And to ensure that those seeds would have an opportunity to grow strong, they embraced a simple vow, just a simple vow. We will not eat from this seed that we plant today. And those seeds started to grow. And those seeds started to grow. Our ancestors also planted other types of seeds. And to ensure that those seeds would have the same opportunity to grow, they embraced that same simple vow. It was simple. They simply said, we will not eat from this seed that we plant today. And those seeds, they grew. And those seeds, they grew. And our ancestors began to intentionally come together and intentionally plan and intentionally rebuild a future that they themselves would never see. Our ancestors began to purchase land as early as 2035, 2040, and they began to actually turn it into this. Our ancestors also purchased lands and they began to co-op. They began to cooperate. That's what they began to do. And their cooperations began to build cities. And because this generation of our ancestors had finally understood and embraced many of the valuable lessons experienced by their ancestors, such as Black Wall Street, they knew that there was much more seeding and safeguards required. So what did they do? They purchased old military facilities. They purchased large amounts of land and they developed them into very effective incubators, accessible only to those with the restoration membership card. So that means on the other side of that fence, they were learning, they were growing, they were preparing even more. And that didn't stop us. We bought and owned that. And that was strategically owned land next to water so that we can begin shipping, so that we can begin transporting and receiving. And later generations, because they couldn't do it all, later generations developed it into that. Our ancestors purchased lands and planted seeds all around our world. And what we began to do, because we were already spread out around that world, was we began to grow. Our ancestors also knew that space was the next step. And they purchased this long before we actually went into space. We were ready. We were preparing. And on this date, February 24th, 2446, our ancestors' dreams are still growing. That's a space station somewhere off Galaxy 6. But more so importantly, their children's children, our ancestors' children, they began to finally eat and they began growing stronger. They began growing stronger and stronger. And our children, who we passed this on to, they began to smile just because. Not because something was funny. They began to smile and laugh. And then they knew. They said, you know what? Now it's our turn. It's our turn to add to these efforts and pass them on, just like our ancestors did. And once our kids start reading this story, our story, they're going to say, wow, I really, really love this story. This story, especially now that it's my story. It's not his story anymore. This is my story. Welcome to the restoration.
Wow, wow. That's a good presentation. That's a good presentation. So, what this reminds me of, there's a black family, a few families that banded together. I was just reading this about a week ago, and they purchased a bunch of land. I think it was like maybe about 18 families purchased a huge plot of land that they intend to develop community on. And
Mhm.
so, this is a larger scale version of that. Am I correct?
Yeah. What they're doing is beautiful, and I wouldn't say larger scale because I don't know what they're all that they're doing. What I've
Hmm.
read, and I do believe this is called, and forgive me if I'm misquoting, like Promise Georgia is what they called it, and it's a beautiful thing. But what they've done is they've purchased land and they plan on developing it. Um, what we're planning on doing is purchasing land eventually and developing it. The reasons that we're not doing it right now and doing it over 32 years is that this plan asks for us to unlearn a lot of things that we currently hold as gospel, as truths, as our rituals that we don't want to pass on to 2050. So while we're preparing our kids for tomorrow, meaning the next 28 years and 8, 9 months, while we're preparing them to think outside of themselves and think about tomorrow first, um, we're starting to unlearn and they're starting not to take in what we have. So by the time 2050 gets here, the mentality is totally different. The we is already here. The preparation, the preparation has already been done. So I was talking to this lady, and actually, I see that she signed on, Topher Tanner. Um, I was talking to her about the beautiful things that she and her son are doing, her family are doing with their children, which is preparing them for a tomorrow. And they are doing a wonderful job preparing them for tomorrow. But they're not just stopping with their children, they're doing it for a lot of different kids, preparing them for a tomorrow. Usually, what happens is that kids of yesterday, once they're prepared, they graduate from college, and then they say, okay, what am I going to do with all this preparation? I want to start a business. Who's going to fund me? Let me call my parent. Dad, I saw some property around the corner and it's really good. Can you help me get it? Dad has his own things that he's still trying to do because he did not necessarily plan for his thing and your thing a long time ago so that he can help you today. So what we're hoping to do is that once today's leaders continue their preparation, when 2050 actually gets here, those people that are preparing, they will get to 2050 and keep going. They won't have to ask who's going to fund us. They won't have to ask where are we going to get the land from. They won't have to ask is this no cost or low cost. They won't have to ask a whole lot of questions. They will keep it moving because preparation would have said in 2040 we're starting our business plan so that in 2050 we can actually implement.
Mm. So, I mean, this is some good information. So let's do this. I think that it's important that we take a minute and, for lack of a better word, just ask the tough questions, you know. And so, just for a few minutes, Lauren and I are just going to play the skeptic to dig a little deeper into this, and maybe get some questions answered that people may have. And so, my first skeptical question would be, just the obvious. There have been many instances in our community when it comes to particular fundraising for the future, for future goals that are intended to help the masses. I'm a part of one Black group on Facebook. It's a business group, a bunch of entrepreneurs, and they actually presented the question. They said, well, with the number of people that are in here, if we each invested $10 every month and gifted it to a business, we could flood that business with $500,000. It would be the funding that they need to, expand their business, purchase property, etc. The reason nobody wanted to do it is because there were a lot of concerns about, well, where's the money going to be held, and how does it get distributed, and how do we pick who goes first and receives first, and things like that. And so, for a person that may have that set of questions, what would be your response to them?
My response to them would be, hey, those are beautiful questions. And the research that I've done, that falls under the category of paralysis by overanalysis, meaning we as a people, and I'm speaking generally, based on this particular conversation of those who are still trying to get out of these pains that America has helped us has helped us create within ourselves. We overanalyze everything to the point that we remain paralyzed. We haven't moved since the turn of last century, meaning, again, that story with Sherry's grandfather, he knew the purpose of purchasing land. Her children, I mean, his children did not understand the purpose of owning land. So by the time the 1920s, 1930s, and 40s hit, when they were now adults, they were on a totally different mindset. And it was not about land ownership. It was about individual survival. What happened there is that individual survival had them intentionally feeding themselves and their family. And also it had others feeding off of them, because those who did have something, who did not have would feed off of them or want to feed off of them, which made them start to hold tighter to what they had, because there were also people outside of their families and outside of their neighborhoods who were poised and ready to take what they had, just like previous generations. We've always had things taken from us. So therefore, we're skeptical about allowing someone to have access to what we have. And this is one of those mindsets, in my opinion, that needs to die. It needs to die over the next 32 years, because we are afraid to move because of our past. We're afraid to trust because of our past. We're afraid to forgive because of our inability to get past our pain. So what I'm asking people to do is to understand that an idea can actually grow. The only reason that it does not grow is because of the people who need to do the work. For us, how I answer that, none of us get paid. This is not a paid position. Our blueprints says that we're going to follow these rules. Our blueprint says that this is a 501c3. So it, according to the IRS, has structures and rules. Our blueprint says that we're starting an endowment, and this endowment has rules that says that it does not write checks from it. So we're already planning to utilize the interest from that, and the interest will actually cover overhead expenses and land purchases and other development. So the plan, as I'm trying to describe it, the business plan is laid out where people can actually look at it. They can analyze it. They can say, you know what are still some of my fears? What are still some of my reasons why I will not move towards my future versus stay in my comfort zone, in my painful past? So that's the way that I would address that.
For those who are really wanting to dig more into the information, you said the business plan is available, and so people can kind of take a look at that. How would they view that?
They can always just contact us. We can sit down and have that conversation so that I will know what parts they want to see. Corey Infamy just had a very interesting question. Will the land coexist autonomously from the federal government, meaning only operations through treaties? There are a whole lot of a beautiful question, for one thing. There are a whole lot of blueprints out there. And one of the blueprints that we are looking at includes how Native Americans got their sovereign land here in the United States. And because it has already been done, because there is a precedent, a blueprint, it can actually be replicated. We have to figure out how. So no, this land will not be where someone else owns it because we're still taxed. We're still taxed. We're going to figure out how this land will be ours, period. And there are ways that have already been established on how that can be done. It's just that we have to figure it out. And because of our 6 degrees of separation, what we don't realize right now is we're connected to the people that actually know how to put the language, how to argue the case, and how to push it through so that it can be done. We just haven't connected with them yet, and we need that help. That was other ways that I was talking about. You can help, and it's not just through money. I hope that answered your question.
I believe so. I believe so. That makes a lot of sense. And so, just as the Indians were able to negotiate certain treaties with the U.S. government to have their land be sovereign, we can approach it the exact same way. That's your response to that?
Exactly, and I don't even know if it was negotiations more so than the public guilt that supported that supported that need for them to make reparations.
So to speak to that, because that is a form of reparations. Land treaties are a form of reparations. Up until this point, the conversation has been had, and the conversation is still being had with the U.S. government as far as reparations. It appears that they're not very interested in providing that. What do you see in the difference between us following the restoration plan, raising our funds, and then going and seeking out those treaties versus petitioning the government for direct financial reparations in the form of checks to Black Americans?
The difference that I see, and I hope that I'm not saying this in an inflammatory or painful type way, the difference that I see is that in the 1800s, where I was not alive then, but I'm paraphrasing the story that is manifesting in my head that has been told to me. Those freed slaves and other persons that may not have been slaves, they did not ask for much. What they asked for was the opportunity to buy the land. And after they asked for the opportunity to buy the land, they then began to work. They began to develop their land, and it was hard work. They did not ask for much unless they had to. And when I say they had to, meaning when they took their produce into town to bargain and negotiate to bring back other things, and they couldn't because the sheriff or the townsman or the clan stopped them. Then they had to start asking, "Will you help us to get to this point so that we can just keep working?" Okay, so fast forwarding. Asking for reparations is something that is okay for those persons who are asking. The restoration says that we're no longer asking. This is not about using the word they or them. Hopefully we can actually start to eliminate that from our conversation. This is about we and us and our, meaning what we are going to do for our future, whether we get help from outsiders or not. This is about us actually understanding that spending power that they always publicize in Forbes magazine or Money magazine that African Americans have. It's real. We just are consumers. So therefore, we only use our money to gain products that eventually poof go away. So we are consumers. We're not developers. We're not builders. So this is about, again, that 32 years to change our mindset so that we will learn how to stop asking outside of ourselves and ask ourselves, what can I do to bring this to life? So that tomorrow they won't be asking this question. So that tomorrow they won't have this particular pain. What can I do now?
Mm-hmm. Got it. You know, this is very timely, just with the fact that they are discussing, reparations. I really love what you're saying about taking matters into our own hands, because that's the only thing that we can control is what we actually do ourselves. A portion of this does have to deal with sacrifice, like you said, planting a seed that we're not going to touch today and allowing it that room to grow. A problem that a lot of people have with that, I see it every day in my life insurance business when it comes down to, taking a monthly premium and saying, hey, instead of me going out and buying shoes this month or going to this concert, I'm going to invest in this life insurance because I know it's going to provide dividends and money for my family in the future. A lot of people just aren't willing to do that. And so when it comes down to, I guess, maybe the selfishness that rises up in us when it comes to putting out money for the future, can you just kind of speak to that a little bit and why it has us trapped where we are right now? Why we need to change that mindset?
Ask me that question again. I was distracted. Sorry.
The mindset of not wanting to plant a seed and allowing it that room to grow. Well, any seed that we plant within our lifetime, we want to eat that food ourselves.
That didn't happen overnight. That did not happen overnight. And in my opinion, we are starving and we don't even know it. And the thing is we don't even know what we're starving for. So that's why we consume anything thinking that's going to fill us, and it does not fill us. So that we continue to consume. The goal is for us to learn over the next 30 years that we are not starving, that we are okay, just the way we are. We don't have to have the newest. We don't have to have the latest. We don't have to have the abundance. All we have to have is what we have so that we can continue on, because we have enough. We actually have more than enough. We just don't know it. That's why we hoard it. That's why others want it. That's why we are afraid to lose it. We have a whole lot of mental issues inside of us that says I'm starving. And what I'm starving from is peace. I'm starving for, I need some peace. I need to get rid of this pain and this fear that I am not good enough. I'm going to lose, that I'm going to fail my kids, that a whole lot of other stuff that perpetuates in my mind daily, that keeps me here versus going forward into my next step. And we can't pass that on to our children because we don't exemplify it. Some of us do, Tova, but many of us don't. We tell them what to do, but we don't do it so that they can follow us. And this is the mentality that says, let's build tomorrow, because we didn't get into this situation overnight. It took me 50 years to figure out that I had 50 years of messed up inside of my mind that I needed to learn how to let go. I needed to learn how to forgive it, let it go. Because as long as I was dragging it, it was slowing me down. As long as I was holding it, it was burdening me. As long as I was carrying it, it was pressuring me. And all that pressure, that pressing, became depression, deep depression. And I don't understand that, or I didn't understand that. I do now. My shoulders are free. I sleep better because I let it go. I can see a tomorrow. I can build a tomorrow because it's not about me.
So I got a question I want to ask. Let's talk about the leadership structure. This is a major undertaking. You're talking about, 32 years from now, buying land. Who's in charge of making those decisions? Because I'm investing my 5, my 10, my 20, whatever that number is, every month into this. Who's in charge of making the decision? Where do we purchase land? Once we purchase the land, what type of infrastructure will be built on this land? Who will make those decisions?
Our professionals. And if I can expound on our professionals, meaning we have a board, and our board has lanes. They don't know everything. And what they do know are people who know more. So give an example of persons who actually are versed in land acquisition. And they partner with persons who are versed in strategic lands, meaning what those lands offer. Is the soil fertile? Can the soil be brought back to life? Is there a water stream, a fresh water stream near, a fresh water supply? And how long is that supply thought to last? All these things that our counterparts think about, we can do also. And when I say who does that, meaning our board reaches out to those persons that know, because that's their lane. And then they know that this person is only good with knowing about this soil, but this person also needs to know about the development, meaning the engineering of the land that is going to put the buildings up around that soil and on that soil. So that person needs engineers in this conversation. That person also needs persons who understand climate and understands how the weather affects that particular area. Can it feed us? Can it feed us in many different ways? Not just food sources, but developmental sources. Can we actually produce something? Because that land might be mineral rich. That land might be iron and ore rich. What can it feed us in order to develop? Those persons are out there. Those persons are the professionals. Those persons are part of the development team that actually says, this is why we recommend this particular land for purchase. Does that answer?
So, yes. So your board that you have comprised right now, we were able to see those individuals. In 2050, there's a possibility that, you know, some of the members that currently serve will no longer be on this earth physically. So what is the transition of leadership? What does that look like? Is it you're bringing in newer people? Is it, you know, that person's kid would take over? Like, what does that look like? The transition of leadership.
Currently, our bylaws actually say that board tenure is two consecutive 2-year terms. And what that means is they can actually do 4 years consecutive, or four consecutive years. They can come back at a later time, but they can't do anything past 4 consecutive. But their only reasoning for coming back at a later time, based on my vision and our vision, is that they bring something else to the table that they can actually guide and lead. Meaning that aerospace person who was not an aerospace person 20 years prior, but now is an aerospace person only by affiliation. And when I say affiliation, meaning his or her daughter married an aerospace engineer who was a part of a larger group of aerospace developers. And they don't necessarily look outside of themselves. They don't even know what the restoration is, and they are only focused on what they're focused on. However, this particular person who is a part of them, this person is a part of them, and they genuinely listen to this particular person. So when he or she says, you know what, let's take this to the restoration. And what I will then do is I will organize my friends accordingly for this lane, for this piece, so that we can develop it properly, so that it can actually eventually be implemented. So that connector or that connection will be that particular person. And I'm hoping I'm explaining this right. But what you're saying is, how does the board refresh itself? The board refreshes itself by persons who actually see the restoration, and then they say to themselves, I want to bring something to that. I have a gift. I have something to bring to this. Not what can I get from this? What will it do for me? What will it feed me? But I have something to bring to that. So therefore, they will contact us and say, hey, this is what I have to share.
And is in that transition, how are board members voted in? Is it by majority from existing board members, or what does that look like?
Currently, yes. Eventually, we will have other boards, sub boards, whose purposes are vetting and board development. Just like all of these structures that already exist, our goal is to grow. It's similar to the blueprint. We're not trying to recreate the wheel. We're not trying to say, you know what, we can do this better. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the blueprint, see what's missing, look at that, digest it, dissect it, take out the parts that don't fit us, put in the parts that do fit us, and make it work for us.
Okay, so we've got a question here. I want to make sure it gets addressed. For those of you who are just tuning in, We are discussing the restoration. You can get more information on the restoration plan at restin2050.org. We're talking with Mr. A.L. Boykin of Dinner and Dialogue. He's the founder of the restoration plan. And so, what we're discussing is how we as a community can move forward with or without reparations from the government. He's created a plan, a 32-year plan that has us creating a multi-billion-dollar investment fund in which we can go out and purchase and develop land for future generations. We got a question here from Eric Morrison. He said he's just climbing on. He would like to know who is on the board. And so, just for you, Mr. Morrison, I'm going to go ahead and pull that back up. And then, Mr. Boykin, if you could just kind of run through the board members and just a little bit about their experience really quick.
Okay.
Let me get that together for you. But I did want to bring up a good point of interest. The Harvard Endowment Fund, as you mentioned, that was a part of the blueprint. What you're doing is basically looking at things that have already happened and creating it for our community. So this isn't some new idea that's never been done before. People have pulled resources together. They have created funds. They have let seeds grow in the past. It just hasn't been us. And so the Harvard Endowment Fund has $40.9 billion. $40.9 billion. That's after all of the tuitions and the scholarships and all of that, $40.9 billion. This fund was just started in 1974. And I myself, I was born in 1983. This is well within the span of my living. And so we're not talking about something that's, 200, 300 years away. This can be done within our lifetimes, but it takes action now. And so as far as going over the board, if you could just kind of let us know who all is involved, what their expertise is, and how they can help with the plan.
Okay. So we have Miss Bridget Thomas, and Bridget, again, her expertise is collaborative efforts. She is a strategist. She brings together people and finds their common strengths. He helps to convey the message of the restoration. Bridget is a business owner, and she is a world traveler. Bridget, she's an avid golfer, but more so, Bridget is a sounding board that when excitement is shared with her, she applies reason to it, and then she applies realism to it. To give you an example, when I shared this vision with Bridget, in my excitement, Bridget heard investment, long-term investment. So she actually gave me the phone number of Edgar. Edgar is based out of Chicago. Edgar is an investor, a financial advisor. He runs his own business. Edgar is connected to Chicago's finest investors. When I shared my enthusiasm and my emotion with Edgar, Edgar in turn connected me with Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley actually has a program that they run called oh gosh, it's an incubator, and I forget the name of it just that quick because a lot of stuff is running through my mind. Anyway, but they offer a $250,000 stipend. You go live in New York for 6 months. They help you develop your plan. And that's what he heard. You need help developing this plan. Let me turn you on to this particular person who just happened to be the VP who ran that program. Sherry is a historian out of Arkansas, Fort Smith. Sherry is living history. She is in her mid to late 70s. And Sherry understands the travel, the story of why we were and why we are now. Meaning she gave the story of her grandfather who, fresh out of slavery in the late 1800s, purchased 6 plots of land because he understood the value of land ownership. He understood that his 6 children that he had, would need to own land so that they can develop and keep growing for themselves and their family. However, that the children did not get that. There was a breakdown in communication. There were pains involved, and those children moved away from Arkansas for various reasons. They did not want to revisit those lands for various painful reasons. Those lands were sold in the mid 80s for $18,000 for his 6 children to divide. And Sherry passes by that land today and sees the multi-million-dollar development that sits on her family land. Edwin is an artist by trade. He is a 40-year veteran of theater and acting, and his goal is to help preserve our story, preserve the history and the integrity of our story, including help develop it. Kenneth is a strategist. Kenneth focuses on his focus is on persons and their adversity, their individual adversity. He actually has a podcast called The Adverse Effects, in which he helps people understand that there is a positive effect even while they're enduring such adversity or certain adversities. Flavilia's out of St. Louis, and her expertise is individual development. She is a human resources manager and has been for years. So her developmental skills understands how people not only organize work, but also listens to what they need in order to keep growing. And that guy on the end, that bearded guy on the end, is the one who's continuously dreaming and listening for more help, recruiting more help, looking for help.
Thank you. I hope that answers your question well, Mr. Morrison. This is a question I had. So say that restin2050.org, just people don't gravitate towards it. Our community rejects it, and nothing else similar comes about. What do you see things looking like in 2050 without the restoration plan?
What do I see in 2050 without the restoration fund? I see us asking. I see us hoping. I see us wishing. I see us fearing. I see us needing. I see a whole lot of the same old stuff. I see our children looking at their children saying, you know what, there has to be a better way. We got to do something different. What are we going to do? Well, we need to buy some land, and we need our own. We need to save, and it sounds like they're going to be having the same conversation that we have in today, that our parents had in the 60s, that their parents had in the 30s, that their parents did not have because they bought land.
So if we don't do anything, basically we'll get more of the same, because that's where we're at now. We're asking the government for help, for reparations that are owed, but they haven't released that. My next question would be, so that's what it would look like without it.
Can I jump in before you ask that other question?
Sure.
Simply put, in 2050, we will reap absolutely nothing because we've sown absolutely nothing.
Good point. And so, like I said, the Harvard endowment plan, that's basically part of the blueprint, that Harvard endowment fund. It started in 1974. It's at $40 billion now. There's a lot of money that a lot of things our community could do with that money without needing to ask the government for that handout. What do you think is the biggest hurdle in the mindset of our people that has prevented us from doing something similar to this prior to today? And what is it about other communities that allowed them to create something such as the Harvard Endowment? Because at the end of the day, everything starts as an idea with an individual person who then brings it to a group. Some people in the group, reject it, some accept it, and then it moves on and it expands. And so what is the difference between our community and other communities as it relates to the ability to do that?
Well, you just got finished answering the question when you started it off. The way that I heard it, you said something about what's the difference in our mindset that has not allowed us to do this in the past. And the answer to that question was our mindset. Our mind is settled on what we know. And what we know is filled with fear, but we don't recognize that. What we know is filled with pain, but we reject that and bury that. What we know is filled with anxiety, And what we also know is, Marianne Williamson's poem, Our Deepest Fear. What we also know is that tomorrow that we're looking at, it's scary because it's going to require us to move from where we are to where it is. Because where we are is comfort. Where it is where we want to be. And just by that example means that we're not there. It's scary. Just that 5 foot of difference is scary to move. Because we don't know that not only can we have it, not only can we develop it, not only is it waiting on us, we don't know that it requires us.
So we got another question here from Bishop Eric Morrison. He says, as a senior pastor, what would your message be to them? And so I believe what he's saying is, what would your message be to pastors who have a congregation, of people who follow, listen, and trust them?
My plea to pastors, senior pastors, is that they would actually sit down with us and look at our structure. They can go to the state of Missouri's website. Our bylaws are already listed under the Restoration Management Company. Like I said, we're a 501c3, so our information is not closed doors. It is available. But to have questions that need to be answered for them, because what we need from them is their help, because they represent, to give you an example, I was having this conversation with a gentleman the other day. He was saying, you know what? No, I was asking him, can you contact just 2 of your pastors and let's have this conversation, 2 of your pastoral friends. And can we have this conversation? Because the thought is that they will reach out to just 2 pastors, and those 2 pastors reach out to 2 pastors. And that mindset said that somewhere back in my history, I remember going to a church where the pastor actually was, before he passed away, was the presiding president or chairman of the National Congress of Black Churches. And when I researched that at that time, it was 65,000 churches strong nationwide. And that was just Black churches, the National Congress of Black Churches. There are Methodist churches. There are Churches of God in Christ. There are many different Black churches out there and congregations. But that was just one that was 65,000 strong. So the thought would be, Pastor, would you consider finding 10 members to donate $5, $10 a month to the restoration? I understand that that's going to take away from your coffer, but understand that this is going to grow this particular coffer in this particular method. And for the next 28 years and some months, because we're below that 32 year point now. In the next 28 years, that money will start to grow. We will not eat from that seed for the purpose of when we plant a seed and it sprouts, we devour it. So we have to plant another seed, wait for it to grow, while people are saying, hey, we want to eat too. We want to eat too. Just wait. It grows, we devour it. This process says that these seeds are going to grow. Hey, can we eat from those seeds now? No. But look at them. We can feed from them right now. No. Because in 2050, when those seeds are much larger and they are worldwide, what's going to happen is the interest from those seeds are going to be able to say to those people, say, can we eat from those seeds? Their plans will actually show how we leverage these dollars, these lands, these resources, these connections, meaning these people connections that are now connected. We're now leveraging a whole lot of stuff other than this seed that just sprouted. But we had to wait, and we had to learn how to wait, and we had to learn how to get out of ourselves.
Yeah, that's a big conversation that I have every day when it comes to financial planning, is the the high cost of being impatient when it comes to investments. You lose out on a lot when it comes to compound interest if you can't let the money sit and grow and allow that interest to accumulate. I was just working on some numbers here. I was on a financial calculator. Even with just $1 million at 7% interest, which is average, for the stock market, that's about $7.6 million over the course of 30 years, just sitting there with nothing else. Nothing aggressive, nothing risky. Just putting money in an index fund could bring those types of returns. And so, I do see what you mean about planting that seed and allowing it to grow long term. There's no cap to what type of resources that could bring to our community. I did speak with someone prior to bringing you on, and they wanted me to ask the question: is this something that's specifically for the Black community in America? The restoration plan, is it open to everyone? Who is this to target, if there is a target?
The primary audience is African Americans and African descendants. That's the primary audience. The additional audience includes our 6 degrees of separation, meaning people who we are connected with, because what you're going to find in my family are not just African Americans, but they are my family, including my grandson. And this is not about exclusion. This is not about walls being put up. This is about developing something for Africans, African Americans, and African descendants, and all that they're attached to.
Got it. Man, you've been very transparent. Definitely appreciate that. You've shown us the board members. You've helped us to understand this is a 501c3. The bylaws are available through the state of Missouri, and so you can go right in there and see, what the program is, exactly what it is. Everything is open. Everything is transparent. This is a well thought out plan. I can tell you put a lot of time, effort, and energy into pulling the correct people together. Writing the vision down, making it plain, going through the legal processes. And so how long exactly have you been at this?
I started this process in 1997 at Restart Homeless Shelter when I worked there as a runaway boys counselor. And the process had a different name then. It was called Community Collaboration. The name morphed into something different as the times changed. I started a program called Dinner and Dialogue, which was a men's support group, and that men's support group revealed a whole lot of pieces that were missing inside of us, and those pieces revealed one major piece, and that major piece was the fact that we don't even know that there's a whole lot of pieces missing inside of us. So that was coined as mental blight. That was coined in 2012. From there, it turned into all the things we talked about. I wrote a book about it, and we kept talking. And then my mother passed in 2017, October 28th. And on that particular day at 1 o'clock, it let me know that my turn was coming. I'm next. I'm nobody's child anymore. I have no excuses anymore. It's either that I build in the time that I have left, which means I start now, because I did not start 50 years ago, because I still had that mentality. I stopped talking, and Dinner and Dialogue had its last event. We were not talking about what we need to do anymore. So on her birthday, February 24th, 2018, the restoration was launched.
Thanks for that background information. I was really curious about that. For everyone who's tuning in, we appreciate your time. Thanks for checking this out. Go to restin2050.org for a full overview of the restoration plan. Before we wrap it up, Lauren, did you have any last questions? Thoughts, comments, concerns?
Last question. I got plenty of questions. I think that this is first of all, kudos to you, Andrew. This is a outstanding layout of a plan that I think could be extremely effective. I think a lot of A lot of my questions go back to protection. We talk a lot about protection, wanting to hold on to things that are dear to us. So when I think about, you saying, somebody saying, "Hey, look, the seeds come up. Can we take from it?" And you say no. One of the questions that kind of came to my mind was, how do you what is the plan to protect those seeds and those plants? Because if we look back in history, I think we can all say, in some ways this has been, attempted before, and somehow, some way, somebody's, we've allowed, groups of people to come in and destroy it, to take it as their own. So what is the thought process behind how we protect those seeds and those plants and flowers as they grow?
Well, like our blueprint, the endowment fund, and you can go to harvard.com, or Harvard Endowment. Just Google it. Like our blueprint, they have an endowment, and the structure on that endowment, it has rules, meaning you can't just utilize the endowment whenever you want to. Meaning it does what it does, and it's designated for specific purposes. And those specific purposes basically says that the interest alone from that goes into this particular pot. Of the interest from this pot, you now have a choice. You can either use all the interest or part of that interest. We're going to use part of that interest, just like our blueprint. We're going to take part of that interest and fund operations. The other part goes back into the endowment, so the endowment gets bigger. And every year it gets bigger, and every year it gets bigger, because not only is the interest funding it, but we're also funding it. So of this other pot, the second pot, which is the operations, the business plan actually dictates what we're going to do and when we're going to do. Meaning we're not buying land until at least 2040. And the reason why is that this particular pot has to grow. We're not talking about leasing land. We're not talking about renting land. We're not talking about putting money down on land. We're talking about buying land, negotiating, paying for it, period. It's ours. But before we do that, we have to negotiate protections. We have to negotiate that once we sign that dotted line, this land is now ours, not ours to just manage, where England still has access to it, or Great Britain still has access to it, or Portugal still owns it. No, this land is ours. So there's a lot of stuff that has to take place before we sign the dotted line. And that's going to take a lot of time for us to collect our voices and the power of our voices to actually advocate for our needs, not what we want, but what we need. Okay, so then there's this other point. There's this other portion. Give an example, a different example. We have on the website, you can donate in many different ways, but there are two specific ways where you can actually become members, and membership starts at $1,500 for an individual and $5,000 for a family. What that does is, if we get a membership, $1,000 of that membership goes automatically into the endowment. 400 of that goes into operations. 100 of that goes into a separate membership account that is not managed by us, that is not under our umbrella. It's not under the 501c3 protections, because that is a membership account where the member instantly identifies a beneficiary, meaning they will not eat from that. The beneficiary will, the membership account will grow up until 2050 also. So that means that beneficiary in 2050 will have access to that share of that account. So we have ways that we're going to eat from this eventually, and there will be more ways developed as we continuously grow. But right now, our primary goal is to create the fund, acquire the land, create the structures to protect it, and pass it on. Anything in between that, will be extra.
So how do you keep in contact, or not in contact? How do you communicate the development of this to existing members? So let's say I become a member and, you know, hey, what's going on with the restoration? You know, how do you guys communicate that information?
Just like other blueprints out there. They send annual letters out. They send annual communication out. They have frequent meetings. There are many different ways that other blueprints are doing this exact thing.
Good enough. Good enough. I don't think I have any more. I don't have any more questions now. I'm sure more will come in. Of course, you know, I won't be afraid to ask because I think it's important. Obviously, that you know, clear communication is always important.
Exactly.
You know? And so, you know, like I said, I think this is a great idea, a great thought, a great process, and I see lots of value in it once people understand value. You have to understand value to understand the value of this. So,
and what that value is them. Once they understand that they get involved, that's the value. However they get involved, that's the value. Right now, it's an idea. Ideas have no value. Ideas are dead. Words without action, prayers without action, whatever you want to call it, they go up in smoke. And the next generation will ask the same thing based on that death that we passed them.
I did have one question. This is something that I've been thinking about. When you look at the groups that are going that are approaching the government and having the conversations about reparations, what would you say to them? You know, would you say, hey, you know, I'm not gonna steal your shine. That's important. You know, go and get that. Or would you say adversely, why are we still asking?
I wouldn't. That's their lane. That's their lane. That's not my lane. What people do for their lane is what people do for their lane. What we're going to learn is how to make all of those lanes work together, some way, shape, or form. Just like a highway, there are different lanes. There's a passing lane, a traveling lane, a slow lane, an exit lane, and then there are other lanes going in the opposite direction or across directions. But there are all types of lanes, and they work. The thing is we don't have to be afraid of somebody else's lane. We don't have to be intimidated by somebody else's lane. We don't have to do anything about someone else's lane. That's someone else's lane. We can respect it. It will do what it does, and when our lanes merge, that's what they will do. We will be prepared for that merger. We will welcome that merger. But more so, that preparation says that, okay, how can we better get a win-win out of this? Win-win. Not you've gotten reparations, how can we take it? But how can we win-win?
Love it. Thank you. No more questions. The defense rest.
Gentlemen, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. I need your help. And everybody out there listening, we need your help. Whether it be a contribution, whether it be an idea, whether it be your energy and your action, saying, you know what, this is what I can bring to that. Let's talk. Because we really don't know the power within our 6 degrees of separation. We know that we're connected to our friend, but our and this is generalization again, our communication ends with, hey man, how you doing? How's the family? Other people's communication starts with, so what do you do?
Yeah.
What value do you add?
It's true.
We don't ask those questions, so we don't know the power within our 6 degrees of separation. We don't know that we're connected to everybody we need to be connected to in order to accomplish everything we want to accomplish.
It's definitely true. Definitely true. So I think we covered quite a bit here. Just for a recap, this is the restoration plan. You can learn more about it at restin2050.org. This is a 501c3 organization that has been put together by Mr. A.L. Boykin, along with a group of board members. You can see the bylaws with the state of Missouri. Everything is open and transparent. But this is a plan for our communities, underprivileged, underserved, disenfranchised communities to pull together, pull our resources together, create a multi-billion-dollar fund so that we can pursue land and really just have our own resources and not be reliant, on the government and whether they, will be willing to provide reparations, if they'll be willing to give the 40 acres and a mule. This is something that we can do ourselves. It's been done before. I do like the fact that you're following blueprints that already exist, models that have already been proven to be successful before. Like you said at the beginning, that two parts of the blueprint. One is the Harvard Endowment Fund, which is currently sitting at over $40 billion. It was just started in 1974, so this isn't very far-fetched. And he also mentioned the Indian land treaties, the ability to purchase land and make arrangements with the government to completely own the land and not have it subject to the taxation. We got a question here from Bishop Eric Morrison. He says, I would like to speak with him more. How do we contact him? So, Mr. Boykin, what would be the best way for someone to get in touch with you in relation to the restoration?
You can actually go to restin2050.org. That email that's going, or that's the website. You can actually call me, 816-756-7079. That's my direct number, 816-756-7079. You can email me, andrewboykin77@gmail. But the best way or the easiest way is restin2050.org and submit your question. That way you will include your number in there. I will call you. I check this daily.
Perfect. I think you answered the questions that I have for sure. Lauren, were there any other questions, comments, thoughts that you had, sir?
No, sir, not at this time.
You know what? Sometimes we give information and we never give an action statement or an ask because we are programmed to hope that people will actually help us automatically without our ask. And if we don't ask, we won't receive. What I'm asking is that each of you that have gotten something out of this, go to the website and contribute $5. Or send a message saying, I'd like to talk to you more about this, or reach out to your friends and tell them about this, or figure out a way that you can bring something to the table. And the last or do all of the above. We need your help.
Got it. And so, yeah, definitely next action steps. As soon as you get off this live, do us a favor, go to restin2050.org, restin2050.org. Actually, now that you've explained everything fully, I like the name of the website. I like the idea of us being able to look forward to a specific date where we can, knock some of the ills that we've been facing off of the checklist and get a little rest. I really like that idea. I like that concept. Any last words or final thoughts from you, Mr. Boykin?
Yeah, based on what you just got finished saying, on that website, I think it's page 2, where it actually shows a circle of our conversation points. We talk about resources and land and security and health and a whole lot of other things. We talk about them. The goal is here to take away at least resources and land. If we can take away resources and land by 2050, there's a strong possibility that the group that takes this over will only have 6 things to talk about. And if they accomplish 2 of those things, there's only 4 things left for 2100 that they will pass on. And if 2100 accomplishes only 1 of those things, 2150 will only have 3 things to talk about. And if 2150 takes all 3 of them down, 2200 will actually stop talking about the past. They will start restoring. They will start rejoicing. They will start smiling. They will start growing. They will start eating.
Beautiful, beautiful. Everybody, again, thanks for tuning in. I just want to give you guys a heads up. Our Elevating Men podcast, Monday night at 7 p.m. We're there every week, and we have some really great conversations that actually kind of tie into restoring our communities. But our focus is restoring the man so that the man can restore the family and then in turn build stronger communities. This coming Monday at 7 p.m., we're going to be discussing the trauma that a lot of us deal with when we grow up fatherless. And so it's going to be an excellent conversation. There's going to be a lot of great takeaways. And so definitely jot that down on your calendar, put it in your phone. I definitely want you to be there, add to the conversation. If you know any men, young boys, your nephews, your friends at church, if you know anyone who could use that conversation, definitely put them in contact with us. You can go to our page at Elevating Men. It's right on Facebook. And then Lauren, I know you've got quite a bit going on. He also has a podcast called The Fatherhood. He's been, making guest appearances all over the place. Is there anything that you have coming up, sir, that you'd like to let people know about?
Man, hey, I don't have anything coming up. I always have something going on. Check me out, Lojo Speaks, Instagram, Facebook, Morning Motivation. I'm doing it every morning on Instagram. Most of the time, I get to you in the morning. Most of the time. I'm everywhere you want to be and everywhere you need to be. So just check me out.
Definitely. And then last thing on the announcements, if you need life insurance is very important. It's something that's close to my heart. I have an agency, A.L. Johnson Life Insurance Life Insurance Agency, in which I represent all of the major carriers. I'm able to help you access the plan that's best for your family and your needs. And this is just like the restoration. It's about setting something aside for the next generation so they can have it a little easier than we did. And so if you have questions and concerns of that, definitely reach out to me. But for the last time, we want to thank all of you for tuning in. We appreciate your time. Again, your action statement, your action plan, as soon as you hop off of this, go to restin2050.org. Let's make a small donation, $5, $10, $20, review the website, process the information and share it with a few of your friends, because together we can change a lot. We can make a difference. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you have a great day and enjoy your weekend.